how much is this undermining the overall message that the Biden administration wanted to send to Asia?
Well, it definitely has the potential of undermining those efforts at a time, of course, when China is waging its own charm offensive, if you want to call it that, in the Asia-Pacific, trying to woo the so-called global south. We're talking Brazil, India, Indonesia, so-called middle ground countries that are not necessarily picking sides between what has become sort of a bifurcation of hearts and minds between U.S. interests and Chinese interests. And here at the G7, obviously, there's some unity on the war in Ukraine by Russia. They have condemned it most recently at the Niigata Finance and Central Bankers meeting in Niigata last week, where they basically criticized that illegal war. So there's some unity there, but there's some other issues, obviously, and one is what U.S. officials have called the economic coercion by China to essentially limit trade if there's some more geopolitical issues at the fore. And that's something that the Biden administration needs to get the others on board, not just G7. Keep in mind, they're calling this G7 plus. They've invited the leaders from other countries, including Brazil, Australia. Albanese will be here because the Quad has been canceled down in Australia. And also, of course, Indonesia was represented at the finance ministers meeting. Other countries that need persuasion, if you will, including India, which likes its strategic ambiguity. On the one hand, obviously is a participant in the Quad, but also buys a lot of its military hardware from Russia. So there is a lot of backroom bargaining and charm offensive that needs to be done. And with Biden only coming to Japan, skipping Papua New Guinea, keep in mind, Papua New Guinea, Xi Jinping met with Marape, James Marape, the Prime Minister of Papua New Guinea, at the APEC meetings in November. The Foreign Minister, Wang Yi, also went to Port Moresby last year. Again, there's security issues. There's potentially security pacts at stake for the United States to offer something as well to counter China's rising influence in the Pacific after that strategic, partnership with the Solomon Islands that China struck. So there's lots at stake, obviously, for the United States. And with Joe Biden truncating his visit to Asia Pacific, it leaves a door open, if you will, for the likes of China, which is, by the way, hosting its own summit in Xi'an at the same time with Central Asian countries. Then we have the BRICS meeting in August, and you also have Vladimir Putin hosting an African summit in July, I believe it is. So there's lots of moving parts here. And of course, we're standing in front of the atomic dome, which, the United States surely will use as a poignant reminder of the horrors, if you will, of nuclear war, and will probably punctuate that as far as Vladimir Putin's alleged threats, if you will, of leaving or not, of having the potential of nuclear weapons in Ukraine.